Lovely, lovely, wonderful people. A pleasant evening to everybody. Lovely people, I came home from my class and I was watching, I caught an interview. I turned on the television and I caught quite a big, large portion of the interview with Janella Pursues and our current Speaker of the House, the Prime Minister's wife, the Honorable Juliet it's Juliet, or Juliet Holness. And I thought it was quite an interesting and very intriguing and a very good interview. In fact, it's called Candid, on TVJ. I'm not sure if it's the last of the series. I think that's what I heard Janella saying. It's the last of it. But so I guess the culmination of all of what would have taken place. It's the first I'm seeing that particular program. And I saw the highlights initially of the interview that she would have had with the Prime Minister's wife, Mrs. Juliet Holness, or Honorable Juliet Holness, Speaker of the House. And she went from her childhood to her how she was raised, her relationship with her parents, her mother, her brothers, her sisters. Maybe they had asked about other family members. They asked about her children, what's her relationship like, with her husband. And she shared some things, about her son having to say, her son really respected her when one day she took him to the barber as an adult and secretly behind his back told the barber to cut off his hair because she and her the father could not understand how they started to grow their hair. They grew up in the era where men must cut them hair. So I can understand. And anything outside of that is just unacceptable. She says she's still kind of on his back, but and she had done that secretly, and he was very angry. And she said, "Oh my God!" And when he came on, me said, "Mom, I have respect for you. That is why I didn't go off on the rails, But as an adult, I'm an adult now. You can't do that." All right, I have the right to make my own decisions and so on and so on. And he's right. And there are ways studying at university and, so on. So, she speaks about having to transition as a lot of parents struggle with that, where they get used to being the head, the controlling agent, over the child. And now when the child becomes an adult, you have to let go the reins. No more, you don't have that control anymore, because they're at a different phase and a different stage where they're learning now how to be leaders, so to speak. And she said something quite interesting that I totally support. And it made me look at her differently. She said, "How do you feel, where people's negative perceptions of you are concerned?" She said, "It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me." She didn't say it was like a water off a duck's back, but it tantamounts to that. She said, "If you wanted to get to know me, you would have chosen to get to know me, but you choose not to. And those who know me know who I am. So it doesn't faze me if you, whatever it is that you want to think." She said, when they, whether it's a parliament, some of the parliamentarians, other people, if they want to run with a negative connotation or perception of her, run with it. She will not clarify it. And coming to think of it, I've noticed that she has not done that. She seemed to have a good camaraderie with her constituents in her constituency, you know. And she said there was something else that she said that I thought, was very profound because of what her mother taught her. Her mother said, "Look here, all people are equal. You're not better than people. Equally, people are not better than you." And I know what the mother is saying when she said all people are equal. It's within reason in terms of our humanity, because we play different roles as men and as women. So I understand what the mother is saying when she says all people are equal. You're not less of a human or you're superhuman while I'm just a regular human. You know, at some point in our lives we're all going to die. So it means that we're on that similar slate of just being human. So it was really from that perspective, you know. And she said you must learn to fix another crown without basically being jealous or trying to sabotage it. Fix another woman's crown. She was giving the examples that sometimes she just bring women. She remember when she struggled financially. I guess they grow poor and whatnot, and know that things are good for her. Sometimes she will have things at her home. She'll just carry some women and say, "Come, anything you say you want." They'll help her with some things and say, "Anything you say you want, take it." Because if you don't use it, well, no, she said 2 days. I know she doesn't mean literally 2 days. But if you find that a lot of time has passed and you have not used a particular thing, it means that you can give it away. And by and large, that is true. You have situations where after a while you find that you need that particular thing. But generally speaking, though, if you find that a lot of time has actually passed, you can give it away, because there's always better. You can always get back better. Giving is important, and I said she's absolutely right where that is concerned. And I'm very proud where she says, "I don't care what you want. Your opinion of me really doesn't count." She didn't say it in so many words, but that is what it tantamounts to, and I thought that that was important. And she spoke about how she still cooks. A lot of people may think that she has, she said she doesn't have a chef, and she goes to the supermarket. She said she remember the times. It's only because she's busy why she has not gone to Coronation Market. And I would see her do that. I would believe, based on how you grow up, the Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go, Go, that when he or she basically is old, they will not depart from it. That is what she knew. She started to cook as early as at the age of 10. She was kind of the, back in the day when you're the older sibling, it's like you were the assistant mother or the assistant father, so to speak. So she had no qualms in taking care of her younger siblings and, scolding them if needs be. And it came with the territory back in those days. So it's like God taught her and trained her how to be a leader. And I liked how she spoke positively about her husband. When Janella asked her, "What is one thing or memorable thing about him that you like?" And she said he is one of the most patient human beings. She said it before, that question was asked. She said it before the question was asked when she was talking about parenting style. She said she's a little bit more stern than the father. He tends to be a little bit more patient than her. She's just learning some things. But when they asked her definitively, "What is the one thing that you like about your husband?" And she said, "He's very patient. He's very, very patient." And I said, "Wow, maybe people would not know that about him," and so on, and I think she was really serious about it because she lives with, they have a saying that says, "See me and live with me are two different things." Sometimes you don't understand that these politicians have to put on a sort of iron fist face in public, but at home, regular Joe, because she spoke a lot about politics when they're home. She said, hardly. They talk about the regular things in a regular home. They hardly talk about politics. She says she's doing some work at her home, and she said the husband will come in and say, "Juliet, what is going on? Where are these people?" And she said, "Well, this one is fixing they're doing the plumbing, and the other one dealing with whatever it may be." So they really do not talk about politics. And she said one of the things that I appreciated of her, she said she will always be supportive of her husband. They have been married for what, almost basically right at the cusp of 50 years. Dang, they married a long, is a long? Yeah, I think she said they're married from 1977, unless I heard her incorrectly. You know, um, but them can't marry so long. No, sir, because I don't think she's about 60 or he's 60. 1977 means you're about basically 50. Hmm. Or they knew each other from that time. They married a long time. Whole heap of years they're married for. Yeah, people. It's now that I'm thinking about it. I said, no man, something unless something slip me. But they're married, and she said she will always be supportive of her husband because it's important. She said when she gets too busy, she pulls back and make time for her family. Her children are her greatest joy, she said, and so on. So guys, listen to the interview. You know what to do. Read TikTok and YouTube. Subscribe. Give me one of those lines, and you can follow me on Instagram.